Let me tell you guys about Belly Up Sports. Belly Up Sports is the internet sports bar. Go ahead and check out their website, www.bellyupsports.com, to read some great articles from great writers all across the country, from hockey, baseball, golf, soccer, you name it. Belly Up Sports is the premier, not your average website.
MLS Onside episode 2. I'm going to call my shot right now, Jose. I think this was your favorite episode.
You know what, man? You're not terribly wrong. Not terribly wrong.
I mean, I literally have not seen any of the other episodes, but
Same.
This episode has arguably one of the top rivalries now in MLS. That's up for debate, and we'll talk about that a little bit further. But this episode does feature the Hell is Real derby, and that is actually the episode title, is Hell is Real. The summary is: Ohio's heated rivalry reignites as kickoff nears. Stars and managers discuss what's at stake. They will compete and leave it all on the pitch. Yeah, so if you guys don't know, Hell is Real derby is the rivalry between FC Cincinnati and the Columbus Crew. Cross-state rivals. And recently now, I'm not going to say of all time, but recently, this has been a very enjoyable rivalry where both teams are kind of looked at as the upper echelon of the MLS. But I guess this is where the question starts, man. Where does this rivalry rank amongst MLS in your opinion?
Currently, it is one of the premier rivalries, 100%, bro. And if you didn't know about this rivalry, I mean, like Hector, you said it before, right? Like being probably my favorite episode, bro. It probably was so far. Nothing against the Miami Galaxy storyline they built up in episode 1, but this one, if you had no idea what this rivalry entailed, I think you got a good sense of it. With all of the bad blood and history that it comes with, especially recently. So I don't know, man. For me, I was there at Lower.com Field when Lucho came out as an all-star on that field, and the boos were not louder for anybody else, bro. Like, they don't like each other, and you could feel it. I think to answer your question, bro, it's probably, I mean, look, it's no Texas Derby, you know what I'm saying? But no, man, it's got to be top 2 probably. I mean, that and El Tráfico, I can't think of anything bigger right now. There are rivalries, do not get me wrong, but none of them quite as heated or bad blood between them. I think that's why they chose to focus on the Hell is Real derby. And even just pointing to where that comes from, right? The sign and the field on that highway, right? 100 miles between both cities. I love the rivalry too for the personalities involved, man. Like, I'll be honest, bro. I thought Noonan was a marshmallow. Did not expect what I saw, and in the best way possible, bro. I'd love to play for a coach like that. Nancy's exactly how I expected him to be frank. I think he's a very much like the beauty of the game, inspiring players to just be the best version of themselves creatively while contributing to the team with value. So like all of that, I kind of just figured just by the way he carries himself. But yeah, bro, 2 very distinctly different sides, coaches, players, everybody the whole way through, and they don't like each other. I think it was a great topic and focus for episode 2.
Yeah, and obviously the highlight of that was initially talking about the last match, obviously the last time they faced off before this episode. And that was, of course, the Eastern Conference Final where Cincinnati had the lead and then they choked it away, and Columbus Crew goes ahead and wins the Eastern Conference, and obviously led to them winning the MLS Cup, which I remember that run, Jose. You were very high that FC Cincinnati was going to make it to the MLS Cup. I don't remember if you were picking them to win it, but I know for sure there was in your mind, you're like, you have to go into Cincinnati. I mean, you're right though. You're going into Cincinnati, you're Columbus, and you're gonna have to you're going into that hostile environment, and it was a tough matchup. But Columbus found a way. I felt the mojo from Columbus Crew. I'm sure Shayan inserted his supporter shield winner can never win this thing. But yeah, I do remember that season, and Jose, I do remember for a fact you were very high on this FC Cincinnati team.
I was, bro. Up until it was 2-1 of that Eastern Conference Final, was I super confident that I had picked the winner of the Eastern Conference and going into the MLS Cup. Bro, Xiaoyan, by the way, that day he wouldn't stop texting me after the game, but we were texting just throughout as things happened. And bro, I'm telling you, he was so low when it was 2-0. Nobody saw this shit coming. Right. And I think they did a good job of capturing that in this episode of Onside. I think like you have to understand how painful that was, bro. And just imagine it if it hurt me as somebody who was just predicting them. I have no stake in Cincinnati, right? I mean, as a Dallas fan, don't care what some random team in the Eastern Conference does. I think that they were just my solid pick to go all the way. Um, and bro, they had to really touch on that. And that way you just knew the history, the bad blood, all the motivation going into this first encounter in the 2024 season. So yeah, bro. They were so close to doing it last season, and that comeback hurt me as a neutral. Could only imagine what it's like to lose in front of your own fans after you were up 2-0. That's actually insane, bro. Like I just them going through it. I was like, this is like holy shit. Does this next game mean so much?
No, yeah, and I think I honestly would say, regardless of who was, if it was Cincinnati or Columbus, I think they both would have beat LAFC that year. I just the way they played, and I think they had a good answer to the way LAFC played that year.
Mm,
So that's where I was at, but yeah, and obviously it starts off with FC Cincinnati after they kind of give you a good like breakdown of the rivalry. And yeah, Pat Noonan, and I like how you mentioned how different he is from Wilfried Nancy. Pat Noonan is as American as it gets. Like his approach to soccer is very American.
yeah.
Um, and initially when he was talking, I was like, wow, this is a very dry person. Um, but he
Like in
does,
the first 2 minutes when he hadn't gone in the field yet.
yeah. Yeah, and then he got on the field and then he's like super animated and yeah, you're talking about a guy that and I think Pat Noonan, he was from LAFC, I believe, right? He was under
Yeah, he was on the staff.
Michael Bradley's staff and LAFC, so yeah, this is his first job as FC Cincinnati and I mean amazing impact that he's done with this team. I mean, obviously they also did some good things in as far as finding players to gel well, and obviously the big one is obviously of course Lucho Acosta,
Yeah,
who the previous year was the MVP. And obviously when you think of FC Cincinnati, at least that 2022 year, it was such an epic year for them, right? You know, supporter shield winner, Lucho Acosta MVP, Matt Miazga defender of the year. So this was a team that was prime and ready to finally get their final, like the what all the Cincinnati fans were hoping from their move from USL to MLS. And yeah, Pat Noonan I think was the right guy for this job, and I think it shows how a lot of that LAFC influence definitely helped him out.
yeah. No, I definitely did. I think all those accolades, obviously, is what made the loss that much worse to your biggest opponent after having such a crazy good year all the way around. But again, right, the supporter shield curse, as Shayan would say, as most I think MLS sickos would say, it claims another one. I don't think we'll see. I'll be honest, like even with Evander now in 2025, I don't think we'll see a season that prolific from Cincinnati for at least another couple seasons. I just don't. I think that version of Lucho, that version of even Miazga, because that was before his injury, right in 2024. So yeah, just with all the good pieces they had, Barreal was still in the league, like. Bro, yeah, it's so tough. I know they have Oriano now, and it is what it is. But yeah, bro. I mean, that's what makes it worse. Is like if there was a year to do it, that would have been the season. And you got to go watch your biggest rival not just beat you to get to MLS Cup, but to go on and beat LAFC too.
Yeah, and they featured a few since two Cincinnati players. The first one was obviously Matt Miazga was the first one that they mentioned, and obviously you hear everything that they said about Matt Miazga. I'm sure we're all familiar with Matt Miazga as far as what he was. Actually, he was the one we were talking about going into this episode when we last week. But obviously physical, hot-headed, dog, like all the words you can think of. But obviously his storyline that I think is interesting is the fact that he has in the back of his head knowing that he could have been helpful in that Eastern Conference final game had he not had a stupid red card, not in field play, in penalties, sinks his penalty kick,
And yeah, and the greatest thing of all time, hoping that maybe the referee changes his mind. when you it has
When I
never
heard that,
worked,
bro,
has never worked, and it never will work to talk to a referee and say, "Look, man, that wasn't a red card." So
especially after the fact, like when is that? I mean, one, it's probably never worked. Again, I don't like you said. I don't think I've ever seen a game where somebody has successfully turned around a ref's decision without VAR. Like I've never seen that. I've never seen a ref go back on it. So and if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in the moment, bro. It's not going to happen when you charge him up in his private space, private quarters, right in the ref's locker room, at halftime or whatever it was, and during a stoppage of the game. That makes no sense. None. Just with all of that said, with how dumb, just pure stupidity out of Miazga, like just even watching it back, bro, I thought it was dumb back then, but like now it's just to understand how passionate he was about winning and to let something that small just fuck with him. Even if you get the yellow, bro, who cares? Like you knew you were taunting, you knew you were walking over there to start shit. Just own it. Like, yellow, okay, fine, whatever, walk away. Right? That's it. Just walk away. Like I got what I got. It was totally worth it. I respect it, bro. I would still take Matt Miazga on my team tomorrow, 100%. I think there's more good than bad with someone like that. He's obviously, like you said, a dog, right? The mentality is there. He wants to push others to be just as passionate and physical as he is. But every now and then you're gonna get one of these, and bro, it's we all know what happens to Miazga in 2024, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough in those moments. I can only imagine what he still feels about that, just looking back at it and how dumb that was, not to let it go. But I mean, hey, I mean, the storyline itself, I think really could sell non-MLS fans on some of the storylines in this league. 100%. You need personalities like that to make MLS more interesting.
yeah, and I think I also love how Matt Miazga in the I guess I don't know the interview when he was interviewing his recollection of that him going into the locker room was, yeah, I just decided to have a conversation with him, and in the clip it's literally him yelling at the referee. So like
We're just talking, bro. We're just talking.
yeah, he's like, I was just there having this really intellectual conversation about, all I could think about was like the whole crew just like
That's real.
were we at the same place? Like camera guys just like, dude, I was with you the whole time.
I heard nothing but yelling. But yeah, I mean, look, bro, like, he seemed like his person or how he was talking about it seemed interesting. Like you heard his voice like go up a little higher when he was talking. I think I think he tried to make certain moments like that whole situation a little more lighthearted than it was. Um, but yeah, bro, I mean, however he sees it, he may not have any remorse. I don't know, but I'm sure his teammates from back then do. And yeah, missed opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean Matt Miazga is such an interesting story just because of obviously promising New York Red Bull Academy product, gets the opportunity to get signed to Chelsea, goes on a lot of loans. I lost so many. I lost count how many times he went on loan.
A lot of potential,
And then comes back to MLS. I think at one point was playing in the Polish some league. I forgot it was either Poland or Switzerland, one of those leagues. But
probably.
then now he's back in MLS. Do I want to see him with the U.S. men's national team? I think it's a good name to drop every once in a while, but he's definitely a Camp Cupcake guy. Like I think like yeah, and then maybe he can earn a spot from there. Especially I just love seeing him against Mexico. He just seems to know how to push the buttons right. I mean, and honestly, when it comes to Mexico USA, there has to be a dog on the US side because yeah, if you don't have someone protecting your guys, it's pretty rough. Like if you don't have that Weston McKennie, if you don't have that Sergino Dest is a dog, by the way. I don't care if anybody tries to disagree with me. That dude is ready to throw hands. So,
Always, always.
but yeah, Matt
Yeah, bro.
Miazga, obviously the all-time. You must be this tall, which hurts me a little bit as a 5'6" guy. I don't know how tall Diego Lainez is, but I imagine somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there, probably.
So yeah, not great for my ego, but my people are known to be short, so there's nothing I can do with that.
It was funny nonetheless. It was funny.
Yeah, I was like, this guy, which is how I feel every time I see a Matt Miazga play. It's like this guy.
I think if you could back it up, bro, like if you're about it, I mean, I personally have no issues with that, regardless of who it is or what the situation is. I think at the end of the day, if you could back it up, do it, right? But you have to be able to do it. Like if not, you deserve to get dunked on afterwards when you lose because you couldn't bring it with all that shit you were talking. So Miazga's him, bro. Good player. I tell you, man, I would take him on a team any day of the week and just hope to God that his mouth or his actions don't get him in trouble.
Exactly. And of course, the other player that was featured was Lucho Acosta, which I'm sure Jose was very much happy to have him featured on this episode because in reality, like as much as like everyone was like, yeah, he's FC Cincinnati's legend. He's done so much for this team, and it's just like, well, we all know where he ends up in 2025. We knew how bad that ended up for that marriage at least, but yeah, all the things that they had to say about Lucho Costa, and I think, yeah, I think it was perfect the way they described him. I think his whole relationship with FC Cincinnati, like no offense, Jose, but I'm always gonna remember him as the FC Cincinnati unless he wins the MLS Cup with FC Dallas. There's no way that um like he's gonna have that special red carpet treatment over there in Cincinnati. Like when he hangs it up, it's gonna be always remembered for his time there. Like I said, once again, unless he's able to get FC Dallas over to the MLS Cup and finally win that thing, um, yeah, I think he's going to be forever known as a Cincy player.
Yeah, I agree. To an extent, he wins it with Dallas, I mean, again, he does something he never did over there. In which case, I think we all kind of know who the the hometown team for Lucho Acosta would be. But in all seriousness with the episode, I think it was he felt like Cincy's boy, like that was his town. Like this is his city. He's gonna be the Cincy guy. And look, and you could make that assumption, right? Knowing what we knew going into that point of his career, he was 29, about to be 30. There were, of course, rumors always that he might have looked to like leave. But at the end of the day, he was still there. Him and Noonan, you could tell too, actually, all throughout the episode, him and Noonan had a great relationship at one point. At one point, like I
Handed
mean, you
him
saw,
his 100 game his
yeah,
100 game
he,
jersey, which
he was the one that handed it to him.
well
He
received
just
by the way by Noonan. So
I
I let me
respect it,
shit
bro.
on
As
you
a
guys
coach.
with this Orlando game.
Yeah, I actually respect it, bro. I respect it. Like, hey, this is great and all, but we still play like shit. Let's go to the tape. But no, man, you could tell, and even the speech, like when he accepted his MVP trophy, he praised Noonan a bunch at the very end of it. So yeah, bro. Curious to see how that develops throughout the rest of the series and into 2025. But yeah, bro, we all know what happens. And it's funny that this episode comes, at least we're watching it, the day after Lucho scored his first goal in FC Dallas colors. So yeah, man. Great,
Just
I think, representation of Lucho in this one.
Yeah, just more excitement for you now knowing that you have Lucho, you're a true 10, finally on your team. But
Er,
then obviously you got to go to Columbus Crew, which I love that they were like, "Hey, we're gonna go see the president," and for that, because we won the cup that you guys thought you were gonna win. So, but yeah,
bro.
obviously Wilfried Nancy, and everything that I think everyone said that it was already what has been said about Wilfried Nancy being that he is just the true football mind. And I think his approach as a coach is so different versus others, where it's like, let me grab guys that fit to what I think works, well, what works for what I do. And Nancy has always been like, and he says it too. He's like, no, I need to know what their strengths are so I can either enhance it or make it better. And so he was more so about, no, the players that we have are the players we have, and I can get them better. Which I mean, we'll be honest, that Columbus Crew team has been felt like the was it pound for pound the best team in the MLS. I mean, the most complete team. I don't know how many times I use the word complete when we talked about Columbus, but and
Yeah,
it is because of Wilfried Nancy, how he was able to steer that ship since he came over from Montreal.
yeah. I also think he understood what he had. Like, just to be honest, I think he knows that. I mean, he kind of pointed out two players, but I could point out more. Darlington Nagbe, one of the best in the league. Cucho Hernandez, who they got to replace Zella Rian, who equally himself one of the better players in the league. Rossi, I would say, is up there with one of the better players in the league. Aiden Morris, also one of the best midfielders in the league. Um, so like I think he understands that he had the pieces. He really didn't need to like stretch, club budget any further, transfer budget any further. It was more about just, yeah, collectively, can I get the best out of each player in this group so that we can, do what we did in 2023, go out and win it again. And so, I mean, yeah, I think we all agree, pound for pound, this team, in my opinion, is the most complete team, like you said, from top to bottom. And a decent percentage of that, again, is just due to the sheer talent he has on the pitch. I think 2025, we'll talk about it probably here and elsewhere, right? What their performance will look like this season. Not sure what to expect with some of the star power having exited the door, but at this point, 2024, I mean, like I said, Wilfried Nancy to me just was everything I expected him to be. I think he's confident in his approach. I think he knows it works. And I think that he now has a really, really good understanding of like what he needs to make a system work in Columbus, which makes it that much easier to let those players go and make the moves to keep the train rolling.
Yeah, also, this was the episode where both coaches were like, yeah, we sucked as players, but we're going to make this coaching job really like make it worth it. So, I mean, I
Yeah,
just thought it was
yeah.
funny that they both acknowledged that. It was like almost mirror for mirror when it came to both these team storylines.
They seem grounded, like both of them. Like they're very aware of who they are. And bro, it sounds like every coach should be. Like maybe some people hear me say that and like, yeah, you know what, that's what it's supposed to be. Like, yeah, it's what's supposed to be, but it's not always what happens. Managers get lost in the sauce. They especially if the team isn't performing, they start to question everything that they have been teaching them or coaching them. Switch things out of being reactionary. So they both seem like uh they know what they want to do, what it takes to get there, and it's just a matter of putting it all together while balancing the hurdles they got to overcome. Right, like both of them seem very, very grounded. Like they're both very experienced managers in this league, which you can argue even for Nancy. I know he's been here a good while now, but I wouldn't say he's like one of the most experienced or most veteran managers in this league. So in their own way, they're both kind of learning, but they because of how grounded they are, they're both pretty successful.
Yeah, and I think one thing about as far as Wilfried Nancy goes, and I mean, obviously also props to Noonan. One, Noonan got to learn and study behind Michael Bradley. I think is a good mentor for him, but especially with LAFC with that team that they had. Um,
You
but
know,
with
Bob
Wilfried
Bradley,
Nancy,
Bob Bradley,
Bob Bradley, that's what I was thinking. My bad.
Michael. No, you're good. You're good.
I'm sure Michael Bradley came into play some point. Um, but I think as far because like I think with Wilfried Nancy, it was the example of the coach that's not from the US or MLS in general, to come in and be able to adapt themselves to this league. I think his time in Montreal, I think we saw glimpses of what he could do. Obviously, when he was given a more polished team like Columbus was, because I mean Columbus, they were not that far away from when they won it back in 2020. So they still had very much their core. And one of the players that they highlighted from that team was Darlington Nagbe, the hometown kid, if you will. And I love that he like let me bring out these championship rings.
What a flex, bro. I love that. And all honesty, bro, I mean, Darlington, he's probably up there. I wonder where most fans have him ranked individually as a player amongst all the MLS grades. Like, he's got to be up there, right? Like three rings with three different teams. Like, it's one thing to have that many championships, but to do it in multiple locations to almost stamp and verify that you are him. You know what I mean? That like teams need you to get where they want to go. That's what it feels like when you talk about Nagby's career. So yeah, I mean, I'd be really curious to see where MLS fans probably have him ranked, but yeah, bro, he had every right to flex, because he's done something that most players could really only dream of, as far as like being um, in the same league and winning that many titles with that many teams.
Yeah, and I think it's when he was talking about his rings, obviously the first one he won with Portland, which was against the Columbus Crew. You know, he mentioned he's like, yeah, I had to play against my hometown team, and then when he was with Atlanta, played against Portland in the final. And then obviously now the two that he won for Columbus back in 2020, and obviously the one from the previous year, being just being able to finally play for his hometown, and the way he talks, you can tell that like he's happy where he's at. He doesn't need to go anywhere else.
And his story is so unique and really special. Like, being someone that had to refuge into the U.S. from Liberia, and then gets his U.S. citizenship. Even played for the U.S. men's national team. I think he has a Gold Cup under his belt as well. But I think, oh man, I want to say people would praise Darlington Nagbe, but I think it's one of those, like, you have to like watch the league to really appreciate what he does. Um,
Yeah.
but I would say he's up there for sure as far as MLS guys. He's definitely one of the best.
Yeah, I think yeah, because there's nowhere on the stat sheet or any record stat wise that he would stand out, and just nature of his position, right? Like being a defensive midfielder, or solely like a center midfielder, not really even an attacking one. I can't remember the last time I watched Darlington Nagbe shoot the ball, if I'm being honest.
Hmm.
But like, yeah, man, I think if you know ball, right, you can of course just go roll back through the years of tape and watch him play and see what we're talking about. But bro, even if you don't, just look at it. Like, how many players can say they've won championships with multiple teams? Like, to even do it with one more team would be pretty damn difficult. I think regardless of sport, we always applaud that. To do it three times and one of those teams win it twice, to have four championships in your career, bro. Yeah, man, I think there's almost no dispute there either. And him being the starting center midfielder in all of those teams. So, and the
And be
captain in some
impactful.
of those cases. Yeah, and be impactful, bro. I'm thinking, but even if you remove the ball knowledge piece of it, the actual eye test piece of it, there's just so much to like about what his pedigree, what his resume stands for as of now. So, yeah, bro, I really don't think you can argue. I really don't think anybody can argue him not being shit. I might even say top five, top 10 player of all time. Like, I really believe in this day and age, across the 30-year history of MLS, you are going to find many players who have accomplished what Nagby has accomplished.
I think MLS, especially if they're continuing trying to make more content, kind of similar to how the NFL, and I think MLB also does this too, is like the top 100 players of that year. I think it'd be really cool if MLS. I don't know if we have enough. I'm sure we have like enough to have 100 players, but like if they did like MLS like top 50, and like it's something amongst all players that they vote for, to see who would be like the number one player, and in the player's opinion of who is the best player in MLS, which probably be Messi. But it would be interesting to see all the names that all come into that discussion. And I think a lot of the MLS guys would put Darlington Nagbe pretty up there on that list.
Yeah, I think you have to, bro. Like, he's just, and again, if you even layer on top, like you mentioned before, his story, which I also think a lot of fans aren't aware of, by the way, right? That at 10 years old, he had to move over to the States, from Liberia, I think you said it was.
Hmm.
So yeah, bro. I mean, that story, I think too, just even peeling the layers back on that, I think Apple TV or MLS should try and make that a little bit more of a focus to further, I don't want to say stamp his legacy, right? Because I don't think he needs that, but like, I do think more fans just need to be aware of how valuable he's been to multiple franchises and probably just the league in general throughout his time here at MLS. So, yeah, bro. Not many, bad things I could say about Nagby. He's had the occasional bad game, bro, but for the most part, he's consistently always year in and year out one of the best players in MLS.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other player that was featured was, of course, Cucho Hernandez, who did win MVP last year. And I mean, I don't know the words that you can use to describe Cucho, but talented is definitely the word. I mean, his story alone is a very interesting one. This guy was playing in the Premier League and just decides he wants to come to MLS, which was everyone was taken back, especially because the fact that Cucho was still young, and he's still young. I mean, I'm not saying that he's gotten older or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
for a young player to make that decision to come to the MLS, and then, I mean, raise his stock, because I believe he was playing for Watford at
Yep.
the time. And now, I mean, obviously he got his big transfer, went over to Real Betis, who, I'm not going to talk about Real Betis right now either. So,
What a game.
yeah, so talented. I mean, and obviously he was going to eventually have to go back to Europe, because if he wants to be featured in this very talented Colombian team, by the way, he needed to do some showcase how much of a standout he is. I think him being a standout at MLS should be worthy enough to put him in that call up for Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, people.
I think a lot of people have similar opinions to what Bielsa has about MLS. So, that's unfortunate, but that's what it is. Also, the other word that you should use to describe Cucho Hernandez, kind of similar to Matt Miazga, is the dude's a hothead. The dude is a hothead, and obviously, I will throw the word in. He's also a dog. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think Cucho was represented well. It's kind of what I expected him to be. I think if you follow, his journey in MLS since he got purchased from Watford, I think I guess all those cards he's got, all the times he's been dismissed. Yeah, I mean we all knew that, but I think again it's like what with Miazga, 2023 Defender of the Year, Cucho, right? The who I believed should have won the 2024 MVP. In my opinion, he was the pound for pound the best player in Major League Soccer throughout the entire season. I don't think anybody can dispute that. It's unfortunate how it ended for the Crew, but I do think that yeah, I mean he's a hothead, but look at what he delivered, was delivering consistently for Columbus. And bro, I think Nancy also managed him pretty damn well, right? Like we all heard of the rumors about Cucho getting benched or dropped because of things that happened behind closed doors throughout the season. That might have only happened once in 2024, but either way, I think Nancy knew how to get the best out of him while also trying to keep him at bay, and we'll probably see more of that throughout the rest of the series as it goes along. But yeah, man, especially 2023, I can only imagine kind of how difficult it might have been when tensions were running high, emotions were running high, as they kind of made that deep run into playoffs, and of course winning MLS Cup in 2023. So yeah, bro. Props to Nancy, but yeah, Cucho. He again more good than bad, so I think most teams would probably take him.
yeah, exactly. And then obviously, kind of similar to all, it's always going to be involving a game, and so obviously it's the first Hellas Real derby of the 2024 season, which I mean, as everything that's going to come with a derby, which is intensity, fans, all that and more. And I honestly do remember this game. This was very much to me what I felt was just two really good boxers going at it, trying to see who can outwit the other one. And I think in that second half, once FC Cincinnati was able to find their opportunities, um, one, I didn't realize how crucial that Kelsey substitution was
Yep.
until I saw it. And, you know, what a game for Lucho, right? He gets an assist and a goal in this game. And, but at the same time, you saw Noonan was like, I'm not resting on this 2-0 lead. um,
Yeah,
and,
bro.
and of course, you had your Matt Miazga was in this game. You knew he had that chip on his shoulder that he wanted to show, that this game could have been completely different from the Eastern Conference Final. And I mean, he was very much there. Almost got a yellow card for, I guess, not understanding the MLS rules because he did not realize that a head injury could be immediately taken off the field.
Bro, it makes I don't know, man. Again, if you just look, it's just his decision making. It's one thing to be emotional. It's just another to have the discipline in the moment, right? To like walk away, bro. Like that's it. There's something like pick your battles. Some battles are worth fighting, others just aren't, bro. Walk away. And that's probably the biggest concern. And I would say Miazga's probably a bigger concern than Cucho. I think after watching this episode, it kind of feels that way. Like Cucho could probably be maintained. It's one thing to be fiery on the pitch and like get into it with players, and that maybe that's why you get disciplinary action. But to do it for just mouthing off all the fucking time, like I don't know. Parts of me as a teammate wouldn't be super appreciative of that. But again, I still take him no matter what. So, yeah, bro. I mean, it didn't hurt him in the 2024 matchup, but yeah, bro. We've talked about Miazga already.
I think what's funny was, at least at that moment, was just like him and the referee like just butting heads. The referee kept telling him to shut up,
The
and
way the rep yelled back, bro.
like stop it, like, enough. I felt
It's
like
like a
a
parent, like a parent.
school teacher, like dealing with the rowdy student.
Yeah.
And the best part of it all was like the whole time Matt Miazga thought he was in the right, and then it wasn't until finally where they calmly like talked, and he's like, no, when it's a head injury, the player can be taken, like the medical staff can come right away onto the field. And he's like, oh, and it was like, also props to Lucho Acosta once again because of the fact that he came in immediately to try to to calm down Matt Miazga. I mean, just shows how good of a captain he is. And once again, yeah, you as an FC Dallas fan, because I believe now he's your captain.
My copy. Yes, he is.
So there's also that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think we'll get. I'm really curious to see how these storylines develop. Really am. I think the storylines that I'll be following. I think Cucho's storyline is actually very straightforward, despite the fact that he leaves to Betis. I think it's just a situation that's, hey, I'm forcing my way out just because I want a chance to play at a World Cup. That's basically it. I want to go play in Europe just to have that shot. And I think he found a way to help the FO understand. Not the case with Lucho, as we all saw in 2025. So really, really curious to see how that story develops.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the episode. Obviously, Noonan gets hyped. They win the game. Him and Wilfried Nancy have the little proper handshake, and then he starts going and dabbing up all his players. You can see the relationship that he has with his players. I think all coaches have a very fairly positive relationship with their players, but you can see him and interact in a different way with everybody, right? Like, he gives a hug to Lucho, dabs up, Matt Miazga and you can just see how he approaches every guy on his
Yeah.
team, and it's like how he understands how their dynamic works with each other. But I mean, for Cincinnati, to get a road result, right, in Columbus, and I think it was a big game for them. Obviously, knowing what happened that season, obviously didn't work fairly well for them because of who ended up in the MLS Cup final that year. But obviously,
Yeah.
the New York Red Bulls. If you guys are gonna get mad if I spoiled that for you, but it's like, dang it, I didn't have that on my bingo card.
I know, right? Spoiler alert, spoiler alerts. Yeah, I mean, still though, Noonan's definitely a coach that I would want to play for, like on every level. I feel like yeah, he's like gung ho, just plain as day. I like sets the expectation. And again, I'm really curious to see how those relationships, even with Miazga, because Miazga again goes through something that none of his teammates really go through. Keep in mind, since we know by the end of 2024, another spoiler alert, that they lose both their starting center backs. So it's just going to be interesting to see how Lucho. I'm guarantee you, bro. Like all of that affects the relationship between Noonan and Lucho, which again you see, right? All those little handshakes he did. Lucho, I think, was one of the only ones he hugged. So yeah, bro. There's definitely like more to come on this one.
Yeah, for sure. So, obviously this episode I think was a really good one. I think that it was needed to highlight Hell is Real. There's no way you don't do it, and I'm glad they did. Obviously, they could have done, El Clasico, El Tráfico. Maybe they do it. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I haven't seen any of the other episodes, but I'm glad that they chose this rivalry. And if this is the only rivalry that gets featured on MLS Onside, I'm perfectly fine with it. But yeah, I think that this was the right way to go, and I love that this was the second episode. So.
Yeah, same, bro. And the teaser for the third one was also a banger. I'm kind of curious to see how that one goes. Definitely going to be watching that one soon.
Yeah, so episode 3 is going to be interesting. It's obviously the Cave and Sullivan episode, which we'll get there when we get there. But obviously, I'm one of the people that actually got to see this kid in person, and yeah, it's I get the hype is all I'm saying.
Who is that guy?